This episode is brought to you by Google Gemini. With the Gemini app, you can talk live and have a real-time conversation with an AI assistant. It's great for all kinds of things, like if you want to practice for an upcoming interview, ask for advice on things to do in a new city, or brainstorm creative ideas. And by the way, this script was actually read by Gemini. Download the Gemini app for iOS and Android today. Must be 18 plus to use Gemini Live.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to the podcast. Happy holidays, wherever you are. And what if I told you tax planning starts in December, the year prior, and get all your eggs in one basket? And to help us navigate the change administration, as well as the upcoming tax season, I've got Chris Papin, based out of Oklahoma. He specializes in tax advice, in accounting, and he's here to share his insights and wisdom. And I'm really happy to have him. Chris, welcome.
I appreciate the opportunity. You set that up well. Everything starts before year end.
Yeah, I was actually just having conversations with my own accountant, preparing and what can I do, and introduce yourself. And I'm excited to dive into the questions.
Yeah, you bet. So I am Chris Papin, owner and operator of the law firm Papin CPA, or Papin Law, sorry. Spoiler alert. I also operate a CPA firm, Papin CPA. And there are some ancillary businesses under that are natural spinoffs. We do some insurance work when we get into estate planning or if there's lending requirements. We do some CE and public speaking type of things. But at the end of the day, I sit by small businesses and small business owners to help them achieve their goals.
Okay, excellent. And I love that. And one thing that's been really interesting is why should people come and work with you? What is your unique advantage? What is your competitive moat? Talk about that.
I think one of the unique things that we can offer is we've got a lot of disciplines under one roof, at least for me. One of the most difficult things is finding time to schedule with all of the different professionals involved. Frequently with our business owners, you can start a business, operate a business, file tax returns, have your questions answered, go through the unknown advisory consulting process, and it's all done with me and my team. I've been in the boat where I'm just the CPA or I'm just the attorney, and sometimes coordinating between the two different sides of things can be challenging because not everybody sees the picture identical. They may see shades of blue, but they don't all see the same blue, and that kind of slows the process down. My experience with current business owners is we are in super regulated times, so everything's difficult. We just want it easy. Isn't there an app for that kind of thing? And that's what we try to do by sitting next to business owners. I always say I want to sit at the board of directors table with you to help you do things. You can delegate some of that to me and my team, but maybe not all of it. And there's certainly an emotional toll that goes with this stuff too, because it's not the stuff you love as a business owner. You want to see your patients or hang out with clients or build the thing that you enjoy, and not this numbers and words and technical junk. That's my problem.
Yeah, which brings me to my next question is talk about how has combining your CPA and legal services under one roof helped your clients address their financial and legal needs more effectively?
A lot of the conversations we have, to me, are it's really one conversation. It's not a financial or a legal, if you will. And a great example of this is if you're thinking about exiting, whether maybe you're selling a practice or selling to a junior, or maybe you're buying in as the junior buying from a senior. That's really one conversation. There's a set of legal documents that have to occur. There is a set of financial transactions that you have to report and make sure you're organizing. And then there's all that stuff in between, bringing lending together, underwriting, having an understanding of, can I afford this? There's a lot of emotional baggage with uncertainty. We're closing a deal at year end, and mathematically, this will not fail. But the owner is very scared of the cash flow because it's new and it's large. And there's this big giant loan payment that I have to make that I didn't have to make last month. And all of those conversations are real. So we try to narrow down, but address all of it in a tactful way. What I've experienced with others is sometimes you'll get a financial answer and they'll say, oh, but check with the attorneys, or you get the attorneys, but say, oh, but check with the tax guys. And that leaves clients in a lurch because they don't get all of the answers at the same time.
Yeah. Next question is, your firm emphasizes long-term advisory services. And so what examples of how this approach has benefited small business clients?
This one's a hard one. I'm gonna try to do advisory justice, but we see advisory through the lens of ongoing relationships, forward-looking conversations, not backwards. So like a tax return or drafting a document, those would be maintenance or compliance-based relationships, not the forward-looking advisory. Very common conversations that we have. New business owner doesn't know anything about anything. Do I account for all of the things that go on? How does that yield a result for tax purposes? Once we have that figured out, how do I save for retirement? What type of retirement account do I have? And naturally, these build to, I have a very efficient business, but I feel stagnated. I'm putting in a lot of hours, but I'm not making more money. And that might evolve to the next level of I'm putting in too many hours. I need to hire someone. So they can evolve as you go. And I go back to where we started, but sitting next to somebody, and I think you'll relate to this. By all means, chime in, but sometimes it's lonely at the top. There's nobody to talk to about this stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, I can personally resonate with that. And it's, you want to share some things and just people just don't, they just don't get it. It's not on their wavelength. It's just, I definitely can resonate. Next question I have for you is, how do you help clients move from reactive tax strategies to proactive financial planning, and what results have you seen?
Step one is right where you started. Make the phone call before year ends. You said it in the beginning, 25 planning starts now. So there's an intentionality. What I find is people are a year off. You know, your 24 tax return gets filed and paid in 25.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they're paying that tax with 25 money. So you're playing catch up.
Yeah.
But we have to right size and align for folks. Now, that said, there's a large group of folks that they get it. They're paying for current year, or they're saving current year tax with current year dollars. But then it becomes the evolution of, what more could I do with my money? Yeah. I always kind of phrase things, make 2 smart decisions, then go to Mexico. Have fun after you've gotten a couple layers of tax savings. And that usually develops a muscle memory for folks.
Yeah.
If you've saved money, and then of that saved money, you do something that might be tax efficient. We don't buy things at year end because you need to save taxes. You buy things at year end because you need them. Mm-hmm. And if you need them and it saves dollars because you shifted the timing of when you bought it, mm-hmm. now you have more money available to do the next steps in the process. And I think that's really important, because too many people, we call it my G-Wagon sermon, but too many people buy vehicles or do what they heard at a continuing ed because they think they're being smart, but they don't really understand the consequence of it.
No.
So can I play a game with you real quick?
Yeah, sure.
If I asked for $130,000 from you, and then in about 3 years told you I'd give 75,000 of it back, would you take me up on that offer?
As opposed to what are my other options?
I don't know. Put it in a CD and have more money.
For $130, $130K, and then over
and I'm giving back 70. So you're basically losing 50.
And then 50, then you get 20. That one I would be on a maybe because I could put that 130K into something else and I could.
You're wondering what the catch is, right?
Yeah.
Do you hesitate all the way through? You're like, wait, he's a smart guy. But here's the catch. If on the surface somebody just said, give me $100 and I'll give you 50 back, you'd laugh them out of the room, which is exactly what I'm doing. But when you call it a vehicle or a G-Wagon, we focus, we as professionals, I'm in this victim too, but we focus on a depreciating asset in a vehicle instead of an appreciating asset. Maybe we need to buy another practice. Maybe we need to buy equipment that allows us to do more services for our customer base. So you're right in the hesitation. You knew there was a punchline. But I think the point in there is if you don't have enough information around it, you're doing familiar bias kind of strategies.
Yeah.
People don't talk about paying their tax bill, right? That's not fun.
Yeah.
You don't do that at the Christmas party. But I think that's really this space where I think new folks into this advisory space need to spend. Because when you first started, you thought about things vastly differently than you do now.
Yeah. Yeah. To be quite honest, I don't get much I don't get much ROI from paying my tax bill every year. So it's always a matter of how can I legally and strategically pay less, and how can I put that money into things that appreciate or that are better investments. Which brings us to the kind of really the question is, what things should people be aware of going into 2025? And especially now that Biden's out and Trump's coming in, what should people be thinking about?
Yeah, so the legislative change of all this stuff, we started there and I've been dancing around it the whole time. The essence of this, the Trump administration has communicated they want to elongate the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So what does that mean? There are some very business-friendly provisions in there, like accelerated depreciation. There are tax rate breaks that are 3 to 5% across the board. They are set to expire. So as of today, if you had the same tax in 25 and 26, it would be more expensive in 26. Or the same income, I guess I should say there. So they're talking about expanding that, making some of those provisions more permanent. Now, all of that is circled around stay tuned. There's no formal legislation in place. And all of this stuff is budgetary. So the piece that I think gets people motivated is, oh, cool, tax savings. But when there's tax savings, you have to offset it with something else in the budgetary process. That's undefined. I did some quick research within our research tools. I work with Thomson Reuters, and they've got updates about this stuff that comes out as what's expected. And there's lots of words that have been said, like a campaign promise at this point. But we don't really know how the rubber meets the road. So that's the piece where I want people to stay tuned, stay plugged into professionals, stay plugged into legitimate sources, maybe not TikTok sources of tax advice, because I think how that changes is going to be just as important that it changes. And then be ready to be responsive. It may mean that you need to change tax type or change entity type, or maybe have more than one entity in your world when you're used to having one. There's one thing we learned with all of the COVID legislation is we can do it fairly fast if we have the information. The question is, do we have the information?
Yeah. Yeah. And what industries do you see doing well, like in terms of if you had clients that are listening to this, and where should they start thinking about allocating sectors, or just, I know obviously Trump is real estate, but tax advantages, all of that.
Yeah, probably the advice we're going to give to our client base is to focus on 3 core areas. If you need to expand your operations, and again, there is a need inside of there, stay tuned on what the accelerated tax benefits are. If somebody is in my line of business is predominantly software, I don't need equipment. If you're a dentist, you need lots of equipment. So it's a different conversation between those two industries. But I think stay tuned on that, because there will be a lot of user-friendly, tax-friendly scenarios where for maybe 10, 20% down, you can buy a lot of equipment, eliminate a tax liability, and have additional service lines, or maybe extra chairs to put people in. And maybe you need to hire folks to fill those rooms and drill on teeth or whatever the scenario may be. So that would be one. Another one is passive income streams. So you mentioned real estate. I'm also going to mention like crypto, stock market, just the different people that have aligned themselves with the Trump administration. Elon Musk in particular is very pro crypto. So there's space there where I think we're going to start to learn more about cryptocurrencies and how can they be used in everyday spaces. Do not speculate and trade on those. But there's a space there where folks are going to use that differently. And then the third area, which this is a no-brainer for me, focus on your client base, on who you have now. Because I think as information starts flowing and things like that, we're going to come up with different AI tools, different marketing, different software that allow you to do more for the one person that's in front of you. Maybe you can do 2 or 3 lines of services, or maybe you can value add. The things I always like to tease, I say a bunch of, I call them dad dental jokes. This is what I joke about. But if you can ask every patient if they want fluoride or not, statistics are about 35% that'll take it because it's typically not covered by insurance. If your hygienist spends the whole cleaning session talking about the benefits of fluoride, then you ask, that shifts to about 60%. Now, these are not scientific, but you get my point. It's that familiarity bias again. Not giant leaps, but if every patient that goes through a dental clinic spending an extra $25, that's meaningful money to families and staff and bonuses that are going through there. And it's actually beneficial to the patient. So win in those kinds of scenarios, but I think focus on your client base is number 3.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Really fascinating. And if people can find you, or just they're listening to this and they're interested in reaching out to you, how can they find you and contact you and work with you?
Yeah. So there's really 3 ways. The first is if there's just info you want to go get, we post a lot of free stuff on LinkedIn. Just search my name, Chris Papin, Papin. You'll find all kinds of tax advice just going through that LinkedIn feed. PapinCPA.com. That's our CPA firm and the driver of the majority of things that we do. So if there's a scenario where you want to work with us there, by all means, reach out. And then somewhere in between, we like to have conversations with folks like you that are leading industries and showing people. Always happy to connect with what I like to call my people. Sometimes I don't know it until I meet them, but it's a fun opportunity and you never know where that journey is going to take you. So feel free to reach out in all the capacities.
Yeah. Excellent. And thanks so much for coming on, and happy holidays. And this episode will release the few days after this recording, and keep up the great work.
Excellent. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.